Hello and welcome to the weekly broadcast of Strategic Speaking for Results. I'm Elizabeth Bachman, your host, and today I want to ask you if you actually asked for what you needed, or did you just drop a hint? Ask yourself, have you ever had this conversation in your head? My manager knew I wanted to work on that project, and yet he ignored me. Or I made it clear to my boss I wanted that promotion, so why did he give it to Mike? This is a common sort of frustration for women. And it does often happen that way, that you asked for a promotion and it went to someone else, or you wanted to work on a project and the glory went to somebody else. But often it might have been the way you asked. Here's the thing. Did you actually ask directly and get a response? Did you ask in a way that you could be heard? Or did you just hint? Hinting instead of asking is a very common trap that women fall into. I learned this first from the great Kimmy Avery, and I will post a link to the conversation I had with her in the comments here. What I discovered was I too am often hinting instead of asking. I will say something indirectly. Many women do it. And when Kimmy first told me about it, I suddenly realized, oh, I see it all the time. I hear it all the time. I'm not quite sure where this comes from. Maybe it's because we're conditioned as children to not be greedy. You know, good girls don't ask for too much. It's an imposition to ask for something. Or maybe it comes from centuries of stories and books and now movies where the shy, quiet, smart girl doesn't ask for anything. And then comes the moment where she's always done things for others, comes the moment where she takes off her glasses and the handsome man notices her. He dumps his loud, obnoxious girlfriend and falls in love with the quiet one instead. Now, I mean, this is great wish fulfillment, but for business, it doesn't work. And it took me years to learn that. When I think of all the years I wasted waiting to be recognized for the good work I was doing, rather than marketing myself, well, that's water under the bridge. One of the things that I found really makes a difference is when you are asking, you've got to ask in a way that the person you're speaking to can hear you. It goes down to a thing I talk about a lot, which is men and women may use the same words, but they're really speaking two different languages. Now, it's not just men, it's more single-focused people versus multi-focused people. It's as if single-focused people are speaking Spanish. And that's usually men, but not always. I know plenty of single-focused women. And the multi-focused people are speaking Italian. Again, that's usually women, but not always. Now, if you were an Italian speaking to a Spaniard and you're speaking Italian, the Spaniard would understand kind of the gist of what you're saying because the languages are very similar, but he wouldn't understand the details, nor would you expect him to. So why is it that women speak to men the way we speak to other women and expect them to understand? This happened to my client, Martha, before she became my client. She wanted a promotion. She had a vision for the company. Wonderful company. She loved working there. And so she wrote up a proposal and sent it to her boss, Jason. But instead of saying, I would like this promotion, instead of saying, here's a proposal I have, she sent it to him in an email and she said, here's something I think will interest you. Now, Jason, being very busy and single focused, Jason looked at that and said, oh, I can get to that another time, went back to the project he was focused on. And then, of course, the email got buried in the next 500 emails that came into his inbox. Maria waited and waited. And finally, after a week, she called him up and she said, Jason, what did you think of my proposal? And Jason said, what proposal? He'd completely forgotten about it. Now, Maria was furious, but of course she did the polite thing. She said, oh, it's okay, never mind. Just get to it when you get a chance, and hung up the phone. And then she was furious. She'd sweated blood over this proposal. And she immediately thought, he doesn't like me. He doesn't take me seriously. She called up her female friends. And the female friends, who had only heard her side of the story, said, you're right. It's got to be about you. He doesn't like you. He doesn't take you seriously. Here's another thing I learned from Kimmy Avery, which is women will often take a rejection personally. Both men and women feel things very deeply, but the women will tend to, multi-focused people will tend to think it's about them. Maria was convinced it was a personal rejection. Fortunately, one of her friends said, call Elizabeth before you do anything irrevocable. And she called me up. And when we talked about it, and I said, did you actually ask? She told me what she'd said on the email. And she went, I realized the ask never came out of my mouth. I never said, I want this promotion. Here's my proposal. I just said, it's something interesting. No wonder he didn't understand. So once we had cleared up this misunderstanding, she was able to work out a strategy. She and I did this together, where she could go to him and say, here's my proposal. I'm interested in this promotion. This is why I think I deserve it. And she chose a time when he could really hear her and pay attention. Jason was thrilled. He thought it was a great idea. She got the promotion. She's still with the company and she's doing wonderful things. So to review, 2 things. First of all, try to notice when you are hinting instead of asking and turn it into a direct statement. And secondly, if you're feeling like you're being dismissed or ignored, don't take it personally. Yes, sometimes they are dismissing and ignoring you, and yes, it's real, they're taking it personally. The key is to know which is which, so you can take appropriate action. I'll also post a link to this week's podcast with Julia Vax, the wonderful Julia Vax, on how to ask for what you're worth, and the information to the conversation with Kimmy Avery. This has been Elizabeth Bachman, Strategic Speaking for Results. I'll see you on the next one.